thank you once again and for joining me. Really appreciate it massively. And as you can tell, the two articles you've written for In Touch have really resonated so much with the readership, and they it's quite rare we get feedback or that someone writes in, but they've obviously people have written in for these, and and I think that just shows you how much they've resonated with everyone, and that's sort of, they were really intrigued and loved all your hands-on stuff you talked about, because it's become a bit of a strange world where hands-off has become a slightly dirty term. And it was, sometimes it's nice just to sort of, because we all do it. It's especially in private practice and in sports and that kind of stuff. And it's nice to sort of hear when someone else talks about it in a positive fashion.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Listen, tell me a little bit, sort of just give me a bit of a synopsis of your background and your sort of current clinical work. What do you get up to?
Okay, so I'm basically, my background is I was a runner, and I was a runner from age 10, 11, from just before I started secondary school. I was quite injured with shin splints. My dad had a lot of shin splints, so he went off to the physio a lot, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to do sports medicine, sports physio, something along those lines. And so I did. I went straight off to uni. Enjoyed my uni years, shall we say, and then sort of knuckled down and did my sort of postgrad diploma in sports physio at the London. Not a master's, because they didn't exist in those days. And I nearly went and did a master's, but I just got involved with the British team, and it was like, do I go and do a master's where it's all sort of theoretical, or do I go and work with some of the best physios in the country, traveling the world? So I still haven't got a master's. So, mine's just much more clinical, clinical experience. And I think I've just always just put myself out there. When I did my sort of my post-grad, I sort of helped at the World Student Games in Sheffield, and that was in 91. Shadowed the sort of physio there. Thought, I can do this, this is okay. And actually met a couple of decathletes that were at the games, who were based near me. Set up a sort of sports injuries clinic at Stoke Stadium, and just basically got as much hands-on as I could, volunteered to work at all the track meets, got involved with the Midlands, travelled with the decathletes, and just built up. And then, once you sort of, people start to like you, people start asking you to do more and more. And basically that's how I got involved in athletics. I did my sort of bit with semi-pro football, running on the pitch with my water bag and sponge, which was good fun for a year. So I just really got stuck in. I've been to a World Freestyle Ski Champs. I've sort of travelled and done loads of sort of hands-on physio, really, of varying sorts. We set up a recent injuries clinic in Casualty with Di Reese. That was years ago.
Right.
So even just in, even when I just graduated, I just was quite happy to sort of do things. And I think that's a really nice sort of thing for younger people. It's okay to sort of have a go. It's okay to sort of volunteer and just get stuck in, because the more hands-on experience you get, the more you work out how the body ticks. I was quite lucky. I sort of traveled 94. I went to the Europeans, and then went back onto the junior team, and sort of met lots of the young sprinters, Dwayne Chambers, people like that. So I spent 10 years traveling with him. Wasn't always fun and games, but it was an amazing experience. Now, having a coach who'd got huge biomechanical knowledge, lots of other knowledge which I didn't really know about at the time, but that's another story. But it was like tinkering a Ferrari, so you've got this highly tuned body that you can work out what makes it tick, so it's the opposite extreme. You're not making a sort of somebody that's injured be able to walk. You're actually making somebody that can function really, really well. You're just trying to make them function as best as they can. So I think for me that was really, really good experience. That took me to 2 Olympics. And then I sort of took a bit of a step back. We moved up to Birmingham, had my 3rd child, and for probably 15 years I'd just worked from home, because fit in with the family, you know, a clinical load that was mainly runners, mainly athletes. There's a big athlete base up in Birmingham, you know, at the High Performance Centre. So sort of a bit of work for UKA. And then it sort of lockdown came and I just got a bit bored. And I'm like, well, if everybody's at home, maybe I don't need to be. And that was when I sort of got back involved. Well, Kelly asked me, first of all, if I'd do the medical lead for the commies. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to. And then, you know, the British Athletics, one of the guys there said, oh, I hear you traveling. Would you like to do some work with us? And that's what's got me back in and, you know, back working for sort of UK Athletics. So, and actually really enjoying it. Yeah, I went to the World Champs this summer. So it's been really nice. Doing a BMC webinar tonight on lower limb injuries, and half of it is going to be about consistency and getting your foundations right. Because actually, if you're strong enough to do what you're asking your body to do, you shouldn't get the lower limb injuries.
That's true.
Or you're less likely to get them, you know. So that's sort of really going to be the first half of my talk. It's perhaps not what they're expecting, but
so that's a really interesting point. So do you reckon how would you structure that? You know, so you know, like I know the seasons are different, so different load throughout the season, and obviously a runner is not just a runner. So a marathon runner has a completely different week to a track runner, and different intensities. How would you sort of structure that with those people? Would you sort of say, you know, 3 strength sessions a week, sort of as a blanket kind of thing, or do they have different elements that you focus in throughout the week?
I think it's very individually led as well. You know, you get some people that aren't injury prone at all and actually just get through it. I think so. You sort of, you're led by the people that come to see you. And depending on what's weak, you know, it could be that, you know, somebody can't do 3 lots of 20 single leg calf raises. Well, they just haven't got that calf capacity that they need. And then, or if their core's not working as it should and the glutes aren't strong enough, as they get towards the end of a race, the pelvis drops, you know, and they're not wearing stable shoes. So when the pelvis drops, their biomechanics are even worse. So we're not changing the biomechanics, but what we're doing is we're preventing that sort of fail. You know, it's trying to sort of keep everything as sort of normal and as correct as possible for as long as possible, really. I mean, you know, you've watched, you know, you've ran in races, you know, it's hearing, you know, the start of a race and everybody's clipping along and you get to the end of the race and it's like boof, boof, boof. And especially in the carbon shoes. God, I was stood at the end of the Brighton Marathon last year. And I was just watching people finish in the carbon shoes and they're all over the shop. You know, the Joe Public hadn't really got the strength that they needed to control the instability of the carbon shoe. Whereas the faster people could just about sort of maintain that sort of forward propulsion. The sort of, you know, the slower people couldn't at all. And it was, I was actually sort of, you know, taking pictures and I was thinking, God, this is just incredible, really.
And do you reckon they just weren't strong enough then, sort of to control it? Yeah,
maybe not fit enough, maybe not strong enough. You know, all those things. You know, I think if you break running down, it's actually very, very easy. You know, can you stand on one leg? You know, can you calf raise? Can you do a glute bridge? You know, and they're all really simple, you know, simple tasks. But if you can't do them individually, you're never going to be able to sort of control everything running. I think that's what you find with lots of new runners as well. And well, to be fair, and the elite.
And elite and anyone, I think anyone so this is always my experience is people get like, they get a little bit lopsided. You know, they develop imbalances and or maybe they're pushed for time and this whole sort of strength and conditioning thing goes out the window.
I think it's sort of just giving people 2 or 3 key exercises. You know, me and my friend do a strength session twice a week, or we're meant to. We haven't done it this week, but it's 20 minutes, you know, and it's sort of, you know, just 4 or 5 easy exercises. But, you know, you add weights to them and suddenly it's strength. And, you know, I think it's finding what works for you. I think as people get older, it's much more important because you lose the muscle mass. You know, and it's the same, you know, we've got elite athletes, you know, they've got a coach, they've got an S&C, and we still remind them, you know, have you got your foundations? What's that capacity like? What's your core doing? You know, don't forget. Or, you know, if they've suddenly got faster and stronger, the core's left behind. can't control them, so we're still sort of coming back in and saying, right, can we just see what your glute bridge is like? What can you do a single leg one? And it's like, oh, well, there you go. That's why you're feeling a bit wonky and you're not able, you're getting niggles. So it doesn't matter what the level of the runner is or the person is, you can still keep going back, because as you get stronger and fitter, whatever level you are, your core's got to be stronger and fitter, or your calf capacity's got to be better. So it's just keep revisiting it, really. It's not rocket science. I think the exercises I give are all quite simple. And I think don't make it too complicated. Because people are very good at giving themselves really hard, complicated exercises. They'll do they'll do bridging on a physio ball, and they just make them way too hard, and they're just cheap. So the prime movers that are already doing all the work just work harder. And actually, when you make it much, much easier for them and sort of break it down to sort of some really simple exercises, then they struggle. And that's all levels of the spectrum, actually. And actually, the bigger the prime movers, the harder they work. Sometimes it's much, much harder. You get loads of people sort of say, I don't like Pilates, I can't do it. It's like, no, you can't, because you're just all big prime movers.
Absolutely. And where does those sort of plyometrics fit in on that sort of spectrum? Do you have that in as well as sort of or
No, I don't tend to sort of give out plyometrics as a sort of prehab thing, but if I'm doing rehab on lower limb injuries, you've got to be able to sort of do single leg calf raises, eccentric calf raises, and you've got to be able to hop. So you can bring in, and before you hop, you've got to be able to do 2 feet jumps. So you bring those into any sort of form of lower limb rehab, really, or your ACL or whatever. It's a really nice test. Can you do 5 hops in a row? Is one leg the same as the other? So hopping's a really nice way of giving you okay, that side's not anywhere near as strong as that side. But I bring that in as part of the rehab for specific, Achilles, plantar, definitely things like that. I don't tend to sort of routinely, I'll get people doing running drills, but I don't tend to do loads of sort of plyos. I leave that to the coaches and the speed power lot.
Oh, fair enough. Yes. Yeah, of course.
They do loads of it. They do stacks. So
that's my fault there for thinking the wrong thing. I was thinking of my sort of own clinical practice there, where most of the people I see don't have the coach set up behind them, so they sort of go to the club night. So that's why it obviously doesn't feature so much in yours.
Yeah, and I think it depends on the athletes. I mean, not so many. Of the endurance lot. I think plyometrics is an added extra, if you want to sort of take it further. I think, if you do your sort of S&C and your drills, I think that's quite a nice balance for the sort of Joe public. I think, plyometrics is another level, really. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if we sort of just retrace our steps a little bit to your lovely article you wrote for us, and, sort of about shin splints, I was wondering, what would your return to sport look like there? What steps would you take? How much pain would you allow? I know you sort of, you talked about offsetting it a little bit first. And then sort of, what would all those phases look like?
I think the most important thing with shin splints is get your diagnosis. If you suspect stress fracture, you've got to rule that out. Make sure there's no bony pain. And if it's even if it is, what you've got to do is you've got to offload the calves. Make sure, that medial shin is as free as possible. Make sure your ankle has got your eversion, and, you've got midfoot, you've got your nice midfoot movement, because if you haven't, then that tib post is just going to be working and working and working. So you've got to have that nice movement, to allow that first. So I make sure everything's free first. Make sure you've not got any dural tethering, because again, that will keep that calf tight. So they would be my first clinical steps. And then if somebody had got a sort of, a return to running from a sort of stress fracture, or if they've been out for quite a long time, I just basically do a 6-week build-up running program. Minute on, minute off to start with. You build up every other day, 2 minutes on, a minute off, till you've got to 20 minutes of running. I then stay at 20 minutes running for a week. And, you know, then you can either give them the choice. You can either run 2 days on, 1 day off, or you can add another 2 minutes to each run every other day and get to 30 minutes. But your goal is to get to 30 minutes in about 3.5 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
And then I use the last 2 weeks to do 4 runs a week at 30 minutes. And 2 of them you can actually make them a little bit of tempo in the middle. So you can do 5 minutes warm up, 15 minutes a little bit quicker, that, and you can play around with it, or 2 times 10 minutes, and actually, so at the end of your 6 weeks, you've done 4 runs at 30 minutes. Your Sunday run, you can start adding 5 minutes a week too. That's nice and easy. And you've got 2 runs a week that are actually you're working a little bit harder. So they're your 2 sessions and then 2 easy runs. So it's a really nice way of going back into, sort of full training.
Yeah.
When you've got medial tibial stress syndrome, I think you've got to just be symptom led as well. And I think 2 out of 10, I don't think I'd sort of get people running with much more than that. But quite often I will change the shoes and put them into some what I'd call donkey shoes, because you don't want that excess pronation. Everybody sort of has, and I don't get people training in carbon. Carbon's for racing, or just pure fast sessions. Go and buy yourself a really good pair of stable shoes. If you feel overpronation is the issue. If it's not, that's fine. But take hold of the shoes and twist them and see what they're doing. If they're not giving them any support, then you're going to be getting that sort of pronation, and then that's going to be pulling on that tib post. But loads of calf work, loads of sort of tib posts, calf work with the feet in and the feet out, to get that sort of variety into eccentric, loads of tib post work, and then loads and loads of core and glute work. And get them stronger. My daughter had, I think I put it in the article.
You did, you did.
Yeah, she's a hockey player, so she's completely quad dominant. No posterior chain works at all. And I think it probably, we were battling with this for probably, quite a long time, on and off, because she was down at Exeter, and I'm like, look, if you don't do this strength work, you're not going to get right. And basically, as soon as she started to do it, they're much, much better. She still gets it because she goes from hockey to running. So as soon as she plays hockey, her whole posterior chain's just gone. So that when she tries to run again, it's all quad and calf dominant. So she's got to just generally sort of work at it. But that's a sort of I was like, just do what I'm telling you. I'm not freeing you off day in, day out. So you can offload them, and it does feel a lot better. But prevention is that strength work.
Yeah, and that's and then you've got that actually quite a lot longer sort of 6-week build up than you first sort of maybe meets the eye, because there's one of those where you brush under the carpet quite a lot, those shin splints. So the rehab's actually a lot longer than you maybe first envisage.
Yeah, they do linger for quite a long time. Yeah, I mean it's sort of, it's just working out, can you run? Sometimes what I just do is just decrease people's running. You don't actually have to stop people running, but it's just that sort of, that out of 10, get them off the roads, get them onto the trails. You can find, people can tolerate with 30 minutes and then 30 minutes on the bike, but they can't do an hour. So it's okay to change things. And because I think if you've ruled out a stress fracture, it's okay to be doing some running, and it's all about their tolerance. So it's working with the patient. A lot of people you see it, I can't not run. Okay, well, that's fine.
I know.
But let's change how you're running. Work on your form, do some drills, because putting drills in is a really nice way of giving them a little bit of extra volume. And then you could build in some core exercises and just some circuits into their run, and suddenly they can still do an hour session, and it's the 30-minute run. So it's just changing how they sort of think a little bit about it, but giving them that mental freedom that they're still getting out and running, because that's why a lot of people run. It's just their escape.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it definitely attracts a certain clientele, doesn't it? And with the triathletes, they're quite happy to sort of say, oh no, I'll go on the bike, I can practice the bike for a bit. Whereas the runner, really, if it's a pure runner, they just want to run. It's like
no, absolutely.
Listen, you've alluded to it already a little bit, and it's my I just want to, at the outset, you said about diagnosis. Is it sort of an MRI you'd ask for at that stage, or would an X-ray suffice for you to rule out the stress fracture?
Well, I think an X-rays it would only show a stress fracture if it was healing. So I think an X-ray is not a great tool in this case. I actually just use palpation.
Okay, yeah, I do. I just
I mean, you know, lots of people I see haven't got that ability to have an MRI. If I can, and you know, it will help them. I had a young girl that sort of, you know, had, you know, terrible, you know, really, really sore shins, but there was a lot of the mental package there. And actually, we needed an MRI to get a diagnosis to actually say, look, you can't run. So it depends on you know, if you can sort of palpate down, you say you're going to have to stay off that for 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And because it's the bone stress, and that's fine. People are accepting that. I mean, obviously, you know, we're looking at sort of UK Athletics. We can get, you know, scans and everything, but at home I don't. And it's
a clinical diagnosis.
Yeah. And you know, what you've got to remember is you can't change bone pain. You know, so if you free off all those medial structures, free off the lumbar spine, take all the dural load away, and they go from pain on hopping to no pain on hopping, then it's less likely to be bone pain, because you know, we can't change that. You know, there is nothing we can do in the clinic that changes bone pain. Might be a bit tender around the periosteum, and you stop it all pulling on that periosteum, then it feels better, then that's okay, but I would still reduce the load. So you know, that's a nice way of sort of determining, you know, what's going on, really.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. So you've been absolute clinical gold, honestly. Thank you so much for taking the time to explain all that to me and obviously all the people watching who are going to watch this. It's I can't thank you enough, honestly.
It's actually, yeah. No, I've really been really good for me, actually, sort of writing the articles, because I was like, don't write for my peers. You know, and actually I've you know, really enjoyed it. So
yeah.
Brilliant.
Oh, brilliant. This is thank you so much. Yeah, and we'll
that's okay.
We'll chat again soon.
And enjoy the rest of your day, Tobias.
And cheers. Yeah. See you soon.